As a world expert on energy usage, David Rose concedes that such a forecast is not inconceivable.
But I think it would, in early days especially, had a certain number of comic aspects. So here we go.
The comedy started when the politicians began to study fusion too.
The picking
Well, fly freely through the air like a bird has been one of man's oldest and fondest wishes. Many legends tell of this wish to fly. Perhaps the most famous tale of flight dates back to Greek mythology. It is the story of Icarus, who took to the air with wings.
It's about the skill you have here, right? Tell them what it is, right? It's so now. Hey, it's so tight. Oh, hold on there, spirit.
The last vestiges of fusion secrecy were swept away. In every star, as in our own sun, there's a constant process of fusing the lighter atoms together, giving off tremendous power as matter becomes energy. It's a process unknown on Earth, yet the raw type of energy that we release or use on Earth, whether it's from a power station cooling tower or from striking a match, raises the temperature of the planet by an infinitesimal amount. At the moment it's too small to measure, but scientists, looking forward to the energy glut that fusion could bring, point out some salient facts.
Is the water buffalo. Like any machine, he must be lubricated. For the buffalo can't sweat, so before work and at intervals throughout the day, he must be driven into the water to cool off. From the farm,
To lecture a packed house on Soviet results. It is clear they're not far behind. Fortunately, he doesn't embarrass his host by asking about their research work. His sense of timing.
Man was challenging the birds, but his wings kept him airborne for a limited time only. Apparently one.
But there may be hazards to opting for a tokamak system too soon. The biggest one built so far is here at Fontenay.
It's approximately 1 millimeter across. It's about the same size as that which would be used in a power plant. And it's capable of producing as much energy as in the burning of a gallon of gasoline. Now we know from our...
With his flaming chariot. And a...
but before the hops are ready for picking, much time will have been spent in working on the new vines and spraying them to make sure they are free from pests.
Neutrons and presented the same dilemma. Were they from fusion?
For if they are to survive, they must bring 2 crops a year from the land. As soon as one crop has been gathered, the land must be plowed up.
That progressed slowly, in my opinion, because the problem is so very, very difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult scientific problems that man has ever undertaken.
Of course you will.
Side by side.
A big city like New York is hotter by 2 or 3 degrees than the countryside around it. In its streets, energy is being expended.
Needed was some kind of propulsion. We realize the great opportunities which exist for careers in science. We do it
for themselves how difficult the problems were. But the British experience typifies the ups and downs of the 60s. Commissioned on the crest of the Zeta wave, a brand new fusion laboratory was opened at Culham, a few miles from Harvard, in 1964. Only 2 years later, it started a 5-year rundown. It was told to halve its effort on fusion. 60 top scientists left. Part of Britain's fusion strategy
Were tried, and this time with leg power. Well, it was evident that muscle power would not do the trick.
to generate any power here. That's still a long way off. But it's experiments like this that build up knowledge of how fusion could work. But now it captured the imagination of scientists like American researcher Dick Post.
Yes, I think that it's certainly not true that everyone was started in fusion research by the Richter story, but it certainly stimulated me to be aware of it, that if we're at fusion, where I hadn't been before.
But by 1950,
In the cafes, the men can talk over thick coffee, secure in the certainty that not even the most emancipated of women invade this last stronghold of the exclusive. There's no rest for man or beast, nor for the tired earth.
Wives and their wives' necessities. Their children.
Back in America,
Gee willikers! It says here the Army plans an Air Corps.
You shall go, in the spirit of Apollo, with the determination of the Manhattan Project, that by the end of this decade, we will have developed the potential to meet our own energy needs without depending on any foreign energy sources.
as early as 400 BC, our ancestors knew that hot air rises. So they filled hollow paper dragons with hot air and flew them.
About that explosion, because in these days of the energy shortage, we didn't want to waste that much gasoline, so that explosion was mostly acetone. Up to now,
120 degrees, day and night during a hot period.
explosion took place in the spring of 1969, when academician Artsimovich came to the United States, to MIT, and delivered several lectures on their results, and precipitated a discussion that ended up by changing the U.S. program.
and the
As to the neutrons particularly, I think the neutrons were the most weird which you temperature to a certain extent from the large size, but there is a strong.
Using the milk in the house and for feeding the young star.
Some will have tremendous influence on the way we live. All of them will be the results of the efforts of people trained to be scientists, engineers, and technicians. Some of these people are working in the field of science today. Others in colleges and universities are just now taking advanced specialized science instruction. Another, still younger group is in high school, meeting for the first time some of the challenges of physics, chemistry, biology, and other basic science subjects, which are the tools.
It's a good deal of laughter. As far as I'm aware, this was the first time that anybody had publicly claimed that they were working in this field.
But not the milking finished, he puts the pail in the transport box and goes off to do another job.
Locked up in the atoms inside this beaker of water. Energy of nuclear fusion power, and it's held together by gravity. But we on Earth want little tiny reactions, and gravity won't help us.
interest from the Western powers. The Russians had kept at it through the 60s. They'd encountered the same problems, but sheer persistence was starting to pay off.
Doc is looked after by his wife, and there is no other regular help on the farm. Essen Scott keeps only one cow, which he milks in the field.
Spend there is about 20 million a year. I think if we're to meet the sort of target which I've mentioned, we shall need a larger investment. I think it ought to rise to perhaps £50 million a year in Western Europe. And if we suppose it
Will cooperation possibly thrive in a situation of mounting energy shortages? The omens are bad. A nation facing a threat to its way of life is
The telephone and the cable, bringing in business information from the whole industrial world.
بخصوص البريدات اللي وقفت عليهم فشل ب 209 الموجود عندنا من 22 سعر 13
Tremendously important. Some will start whole new industries unknown today.
testing only a few links in the chain here. 1,000,000 times brighter than the sun. Even this brief flash will be more than they're after.
The fusion reaction to power the laser in the first place
Would rise by several degrees, and the effect of that on the polar ice caps would be alarming. They would melt, and the sea would rise.
It is the result of many minds in a worldwide effort.
Emotional content of the research, and I can't blame anyone for getting excited about an apparently very exciting result.
But that same person, although he doesn't know it, just a few yards away behind closed doors, Harwell is busy assembling its own fusion secret, a version of Peter Toneman's first torus, but now scaled up into a monster donut, 3 feet across. Although the scientists want to show it to the Russians, they're prevented by a top-level security agreement with America. The situation is patently absurd.
Experience adventures of discovery more exciting and more satisfying than any experienced by our forefathers.
Value beyond price, and their own.
Some of it became a revolution.